This is The Big Picture, an official television report of the United States Army, produced for the armed forces and the American people. Now, to show you part of the big picture, here is Master Sergeant Stuart Quain.
In the fall of 1907, the United States Army purchased from two bicycle mechanics named Wright the first military plane. Guaranteed to remain aloft for 1 hour, it carried two persons, had an airspeed of 40 miles an hour, and was light enough to be transported in an Army wagon. 50 years have passed since 1907. The miracle of flight has become a commonplace reality. There seems no limit to aviation progress. This is the Army's tribute to the pilots, the mechanics, the engineers, and the countless others who have given wings to man's dreams.
This is the age of flight, the air age. Today, air power is a dominant factor in the American defense program. Far out from all four corners of the United States, Navy and Air Force radar planes are spreading an aerial umbrella across the sky. Careful men, guarding against any sudden attack. They are a vital link in a radar team that includes the Dewline early warning stations in northern Canada, Texas tower installations at sea, and Navy picket ships. America has a shield of radar which will search out unknown aircraft long before they reach U.S. borders. But it is upon our airmen and modern aircraft that we must rely in case of enemy attack. Here is our offense and our defense, a magnificent bulwark of aircraft whose speed, strength, and dedication provides us with air power. But it wasn't always like this. For centuries, man gazed up at the flight of the bird in helpless envy. How easy it seemed, if all it took was wings. Alas, wings alone were not enough, as many bird men proved. Despite ingenuity and determination, they flapped and flapped in vain. And although the spirit was willing, it remained for Orville Wright and his brother Wilbur to point the way. On December 17, 1903, in Kittyhawk, North Carolina, Orville won the flip of a coin and immortality. With two bounces, he was in the air, where he hovered for 12 seconds at 31 miles an hour, covering 120 feet. But there were other early flying machines, some that taxied, and some that hopped, some that didn't do much of anything, and some that, hey, watch out there! In 1907, the Army recognized the potential of aviation, and in 1909, it purchased the first military plane. The U.S. Army Air Service was founded under the supervision of the Chief Signal Officer. Early Army pilots were assigned the task of testing and improving the piano wire and canvas airships. They flew test after test. Not all of the flights were successful. The first man to die in a plane crash was an Army lieutenant. Now, planes were getting bigger. By 1910, an unknown enthusiast named Glenn Curtis was building and flying amphibians. By 1914, the fledgling Army Air Service had expanded to several dozen planes. At first, planes were used only for aerial reconnaissance. But in time, bombs, and then machine guns were added. Pilots who had once waved at each other as they passed now shot to kill. These were the days of the Lafayette Escadrille and Baron von Richthofen's Flying Circus, of Billy Bishop and Eddie Rickenbacker, Americans learned new words, the Spad, the Fokker, the Jenny. With the end of the war, numerous new experimental planes appeared. And a new kind of scientist emerged, the aeronautical engineer. There was even a new kind of aircraft. It was called a helicopter. By the middle 20s, there seemed no doubt that the helicopter would fly. The only question was, in which direction? Some early four-bladed copters actually hovered, while others only bounced. Before long, however, there was evidence enough that the helicopter was here to stay. Now man was finding first one method and then another of flying where for thousands of years he had been able to do little more than watch the birds and dream. These were the days of the stunt pilots. The barnstormers. When the thrill of seeing a parachute open was new. Records were being broken. Alcock and Brown became the first to conquer the Atlantic. Then, a few years later, a small Ryan monoplane, the Spirit of St. Louis, soloed the Atlantic and captured the imagination of the world. Meanwhile, the Army was flying the males. In all weather, around the clock. And Army test pilots were stunting and looping in new, improved biplanes. The autogyro was having its day and opening the way for today's American helicopter. Commercial aviation was developing. Gasoline octane ratings were going up. Passengers were now carried on regularly scheduled flights. This luxurious airliner of the early 30s carried 8. Some people even thought commercial aviation had a future. By the late 30s, however, the biplane had almost completely disappeared. The Army Air Service had given way to the United States Army Air Corps, and although hard-pressed for funds, had developed the nucleus of a modern Air Force. But it was only after Pearl Harbor that America's factories started rolling in earnest. Now we needed planes not by the thousands, but by the tens of thousands. First and foremost was the B-17, the world-famous flying fortress. She packed a wallop. From all over America came the pilots, and soon the planes were ready.